Hello and welcome. In this video segment we'll create the geometry for Tutorial 1 Exercise 2. The drawing for this exercise is at the end of Tutorial 1. On the screen is the completed geometry. Shortly I'll create a new file and start at the beginning, but before we do, let's review the finished geometry on the screen. The center of this grid is X0, Y0. The first step will be to create the rectangle that measures 10 inches by 6 inches, and I'll use Create Rectangle for this. The next step will be to create the inside shape. Now this shape starts off life as a rectangle that measures 8.5 inches wide. That's the horizontal dimension 2.5 plus 3.5 plus 2.5. Now the height is 4.5. That's the vertical dimensions 3 plus 1.5, and I'll also use Create Rectangle for this. Also notice that the lower left corner of this inside shape is 0.75 from the lower left corner of the first rectangle along the X and Y axes. Now after this, the remaining lines will be created using line endpoints and parallel lines. Finally, we'll do some trimming and then create the 0.5 arcs using fillet. Let's get going and start a new part and start creating the geometry for this drawing exercise. Moving up to the top left hand corner of the screen, I'm going to select the icon for New Part. Now the first thing we're going to do is create that rectangle 10 by 6. So I'm going to move into Create and slide on down and select Create Rectangle. Now up on the ribbon bar, I'm going to click in the white space for width and input 10.0, and then I'm going to hit the Tab key on my keyboard, and here we are in the height section, and the height is 6.0. Now as we slide over to the right, I'm going to activate Anchor to Center. So my anchor point is in the center of this rectangle. Now I'm prompted select position of base point. Well, the base point is at the origin X0, Y0, and as you can see, the visual cue on the screen is letting me know that I'm going to snap to the origin. So I'm just going to click this point. Now we've created our rectangle. Let's just move on up and do a screen fit, and I'm just rolling the wheel on my mouse just to shrink it down a bit. Now there's our first rectangle 10 by 6. Now I've got another rectangle to complete, so what I'm going to do is move up to the ribbon bar and click on Apply. Now let's slide over to the left. Now I'm going to click in the white section for the width. Now for the width of this rectangle, what I'm going to do is look at my drawing, and for the width there are 3 horizontal dimensions. So what I'm going to do is type in 2.5 plus 3.5 plus 2.5. So there are 3 horizontal dimensions at the bottom of the drawing. Now I'm going to hit Tab. Now over in the height, what I'm going to do is on the left hand side of the drawing there are 2 vertical dimensions, 3.0 plus 1.5. So that's my vertical dimension. Now if we slide over to the right, I'm going to deactivate Anchor to Center. Now as you can see, the anchor point is in the lower left corner of this rectangle. Now for the position, I'm looking at the drawing. I don't really know what the absolute X and Y value is, but I do know a distance from the lower left corner of the first rectangle that we created. Looking at the drawing, there's a 0.75 horizontal dimension and a 0.75 vertical dimension from this corner. So what I'm going to do is, up on the Order Cursor ribbon bar, I'm going to open up this drop down, and right at the very bottom I'm going to select relative. Now the prompt has changed. Enter a known point or change to a long mode. Well, my known point is in the lower left corner, so I'm going to pick. Now the prompt has changed. Enter rectangular or polar coordinates. Now up in the ribbon bar in the delta section, what I'm going to do is type in 0.75. That's my x value from that lower left corner, comma, and now I'm going to type in 0.75, and that's the distance along y from this lower left corner, and then hit enter, and there's our rectangle. Now I'm finished here, so I'm going to go up to the ribbon bar and click on OK. Now the next thing we're going to do is create some lines. So I'm going to move into create line, and what we're going to do is pick the one at the top here, create line endpoint. Now the first line I'd like to create is over in the left hand corner, and it's this line at an angle that starts somewhere round about here and it finishes somewhere over here. Now I'm not quite sure where the absolute x and y values are for the endpoints of this line, but looking at the drawing, I do have a dimension from the lower left corner. So what I'm going to do again is move on up and click on relative. Now enter a known point. I'm going to select this point in the lower left corner. Now up in the delta section on the ribbon bar, what I've got to do is look at the drawing and identify where this point, where the endpoint starts in relation to this lower left corner. So for the x value, there is a horizontal dimension 0.75. I'm going to type in a comma. Now for the y dimension, over on the left hand side of the drawing there are two vertical dimensions. The first one is 0.75 plus 3.0. I'm going to hit enter. So there's the start of this line. Now I'm prompted, specify the second endpoint, which is over here somewhere, but what I'm going to do is pick on relative, enter a known point. I'm going to pick this point again and then move up to the delta section. I'm going to look at the drawing, and at the very top of the drawing is a horizontal dimension that's along the x-axis. I'm going to type in 3.0, comma. Now the y value from this lower left corner, well, I'm looking over on the left hand side of the drawing, and there are three vertical dimensions that I'm going to use. The first one, 0.75 plus 3.0 plus 1.5, and I'm going to hit enter, and there's my first line. Now I'd like to continue, so what I'm going to do is hit apply. Now for the next line, over on the right hand side, this angled line, I'm going to start approximately here and we'll finish over here somewhere. Now again, I'm not quite sure what the x and y absolute values are, but I do know by looking at the drawing, I do have a dimension from this lower left corner. So as we did before, I'm going to click on relative. Now the known point, I'm going to pick this point in the lower left corner. Now back up to the ribbon bar in the delta section. Now the x value, I'm looking at my drawing, at the very top there are two horizontal dimensions. So I'm going to type in 3.0 plus 4.0. So that's the x value from that lower left point, comma. And now for the y value. So looking over on the left hand side of the drawing, there are three vertical dimensions that I'm going to input and get Mastercam to do the arithmetic. 0.75 plus 3.0 plus 1.5, and then I'm going to hit enter. So there's the start of our line. Now we're prompted for the second endpoint, which is over here somewhere. But again, what I'm going to do is go up and pick relative. Now enter a known point. I'm going to pick this point in the lower left corner. Now back up to the ribbon bar. Now for the x value, I'm looking at the bottom of the drawing, and there's a bunch of horizontal dimensions. So what I'm going to do is type in 0.75 plus the next one along is 2.5 plus 3.5 plus 2.5 comma. So that's the X value. Now for the Y, I'm looking on the left hand side of the drawing and there's a couple of dimensions. The first one 0.75 plus 3.0, and then I'm going to hit enter, and there's our line. Looks great. Now we're done here, so what I'm going to do is move up to the ribbon bar and click on OK. Now we've still got some lines to create, but this time we're going to go into create line, and right at the very bottom of this list, create line parallel. Now for the first prompt, select a line. I'm going to move down to the bottom of the screen and select this horizontal line. Now we've moved on to the next prompt. Select the point to place a parallel line through. So what I'm going to do is pick a point above this line. Now moving up to the ribbon bar, for the distance what I'm going to do is type in 2.0 and then hit enter. And there's our first line. I'm going to hit apply. Now I'm prompted again, select a line. What I'm going to do next is pick this vertical line over on the left. For the point, I'm just going to pick a point somewhere to the right. Now the distance is 2.5. And I've also hit on the icon, and as you can see it's turned red. I've locked that distance in. Now for this next prompt, select a line. I'm going to pick this vertical line on the right hand side, indicate the offset direction, and I'm just going to pick a point somewhere to the left, and there's our line. Offset from this line 2.5. Now I'm done here, so I'm going to move up and click on the green check for OK. The next thing I'd like to do is some trimming. What I'd like to do is this horizontal line at the bottom, I'd like to trim it between here and this vertical line. So let's go into edit, trim break, and I'm going to pick trim break. Now up on the ribbon bar, I'm going to select divide, and as you can see the prompt, select the curve to divide. What I'm going to do is move on down and select this horizontal line at the bottom, and as you can see it's been trimmed away between this vertical and this vertical line. Now that's all I want to do. I'm going to move on up to the ribbon bar and click on OK. Now next we've got some 0.5 fillets to create. So let's go into create, slide on down into fillet. I'm going to pick on fillet entities. Now up on the ribbon bar, the radius is set to 0.25. I'm going to change it to 0.5. Now as you can see the prompt, select an entity. So what I'm going to do first of all is pick this horizontal line and then pick this vertical line, and now I'm going to move around, pick this line, this angled line, I'm going to pick this line and then this top horizontal line. Moving over, I'm going to pick that line and then this angled line. I'm going to pick this line here and then slide on down and pick this right vertical line. Moving on down to the bottom, I'm going to pick this line again and then this horizontal line. I'll pick that line again and then this line. We're nearly there. I'm going to pick this line and then this horizontal line. I'm going to pick that line again and then this line. Now as you can see, I've got the trim turned on, so as we moved around everything's getting trimmed. One last guy to go. I'm going to pick this guy and then this horizontal line down the bottom, and that looks a thing of beauty. I'm just going to move up now to the ribbon bar and pick OK, and that completes this drawing exercise and the end of this video. Thanks for watching.